about to kick off. Now, all of the data we have is from SEC, right? I mean, we've got the EU SEC, the North American SEC. That's what we have really to go off of right now. I think there will be some carryover. There will be very similar picks that we start to see as strong. I mean, all the minds in the SEC are certainly very strong. Immediately jumping out to me, Athena, I imagine she'll continue to be either completely banned or first pick priority throughout most of these matchups. Admittedly, Gore, I am surprised at the Persephone ban. We saw Persephone fall so low. Again, if we're comparing to SEC, Persephone has been falling way down those draft boards, but still so strong here at the SPO level.
This was something that actually it was almost the reverse for me. Right? I've been surprised that we haven't been seeing it in the SEC because Persephone, admittedly at the high level, is just really good, right? It's very difficult to think of who, especially in the Pro League, is going to be able to pick her up and not find her. Tiamat, Yamoja, like these picks that have been very prominent and have been in the past, I think are going to continue to do so. And so all of these bans, I kind of feel right at home, right? I mean, you add Tiamat in there, it's like the only real new addition to what we would have had outside of that, maybe Athena, because of the buffs she received pretty recently here in Season 8.
Yeah, if you're excited to see some Tiamat gameplay, you're probably going to have to do it on your own. I doubt she makes her way into any of these SPO games. Again, if she's not banned, maybe she's first pick priority, but haven't seen much of the Tiamat getting through at the SEC level. How about this, Goremizer? We got a Ymir first pick. The first pick collected in Season 8 of the SPO is a Ymir. This pick is obviously still very, very strong in the eyes of the Camelot Kings. Achilles and Chernobog round out their top three. I'm very interested and excited, though, Gore. The King Arthur pick here. We've heard rumblings about the ability to dominate lanes with picks like this. And why not give it over to Benji? See what he can do in the first game of the year.
I'll admit I'm a little surprised to see it maybe over something like the Cucullin that we know not only is Benji like fantastic at because he has a skin for Cucullin after him in the game, but I think it's just one of those things that King Arthur has been very prominent. Again, something that I think we've kind of been missing from the lower leagues where we haven't gotten to see him dominate the way that we expect. I think he's maybe eked through one game there, but he really is a dominant force. And again, at this level, I would put him up there with things like the Persephone, like the Cucullin, if you want to compare him directly to things in the solo lane, as a very dominating factor. On her, the Morgan, like this is a combination, the top three here for the Titans, that is going to work very well together. Paul, we've seen at Worlds, the most recent that we could have seen it. His Morgan is top tier, so pairing that with an on-her and a King Arthur, I think every single pillar of the three lanes is going to be able to find good control.
Whoa, how about this, Goremizer? Kukulkan is going to round out the draft here for the Camelot Kings. That one is surprising. We've seen some standard here so far, but the Kukulkan, admittedly very interesting. Great to pair with some of the setup that the Naja is going to bring to the table. BMT, absolutely fantastic, following up on some of that damage. That's the synergy we're looking for. Remember, this Camelot Kings team, how will Twig and BMT mesh together, and how will Twig obviously mesh with the rest of the team. But let's give Twig something that works. Gore, you're excited about the Bacchus. Break something down here for me, man. There's a lot to look at.
Okay, I gotta pull it up because it literally happened Tuesday where he got his update, right? Like, I mean, he just very recently got some small buffs that are going to help him out throughout this. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, Bacchus has always been really good. Looking at the other team, I think he's going to have a lot of control here, but it's the small buffs to his early game that's really going to be able to help him out.
Played with the vines, I've become less affected by them. The two auto attacks feels like you clear them pretty quickly. So you end up in a position where you can contest more things than I thought you'd be able to, but I do think it affects your god pick at least slightly. You know, these gods with leaps to get over them end up being at least marginally better than what we would see otherwise. So I don't know. I'm not super worried about how they're going to affect the map, but I do think that they factor into picks and bans at least a little bit.
Well, I like to keep my eyes here on Netroid. Already has some pressure, him and Genetics here in this duo lane. The rest of that old Sanguine squad has moved on, right? I mean, they're on the Leviathans now, moved into Julio to solo, and they seem to be rocking and rolling. I think this is a team with a ton to prove, this Camelot Kings roster, and Netroid in particular, and Tings and Twig all kind of want to show that even without some of those strong teams we're on, they can still be strong here. I think it would be such a great story if Netroid were able to have a really great year here with this team.
Agreed, and I think he's going to. I just think Netroid's super talented. I think that he is one of the premier ADCs in this league. I know. It must have been behind-the-scenes stuff, and we'll have some content coming out sooner rather than later on all of the roster decisions that went through the SPO coming into this year, so you can start getting excited about that. But talk to some of the Leviathans players about it. You'll be hearing their thoughts shortly. But I wanna stay focused on this teleport for Genetics. So he goes it again, so it's definitely not a misbuy. He picks up the teleport. It's got to be centered around these first buff respawns, because you have to get value out of this teleport really early. Now, he did use it in the first opportunity to see them play, where we had to make the remake. He went over towards blue buff. We'll see what he does this time around, because red buffs are synced. Neither team started on red. Both dual lanes started on purple. Junglers alone at speed, solo laners alone at blue, and then mid laner and jungler came together for red buffs after the first buff. So both buffs are synced up, which means that if Genetics goes to try and invade that red, he's not necessarily there to help support his own. But based on where Twig is going, I can't imagine a red buff invade is the idea. Blue buff's already up, so Scary D's already there. It looks to me like Genetics isn't going to be using this teleport for the very first respawn of buff, which is where I think that this would be the most valuable, because you start with boots 1, be able to back after the first few waves with enough gold for boots 2, or boots 3 rather, full boots. You can teleport back into the strongest player on the map here with full boots. I wonder what he's going to do with it, because that's already we're kind of past the point where I'm expecting it to make the most surprising play.
Yeah, he lost a little bit of that as you already kind of covered that first attempt from himself. Right. We'll see what the idea is, because on the other side, Roar has this Sunder, and I think it's real clear how that's planning on getting its value. Next to 0% chance that's not hitting the intended target on the back of a flop or something to that effect. It's Captain Twig that wants to be the one starting the fights off first. It's Sash into Windfire Wheel. Scary D lands, and Big Man Tings get your first blood of Season 8, and that is one of Cuckoo's big strengths. Not a whole lot that are better at following up than him.
Scary has got to be careful about where Twig is at any given time, because the Twig-Tings combo is just too easy from that position. No beads for Scary D. I'm a little surprised that he doesn't go beads because that combo is just so lethal. It's not just that combo. I mean, you're talking a Ymir freeze. Still instant death for this Nemesis. Scary, I mean, obviously a huge talking point for this Titan squad. Swapping to the jungle. He kind of gets a rude awakening for his first SPL game in the role. Definitely not the start he wanted.
Not at all. The Big Man Tings now level 7 highest on that, and even a bit ahead of Paul. We know the kind of effect that Paul can have. He's able to get his game started off on the right foot. Listen, we're just going to celebrate the victories for Tings. Maybe not the tornado. Not quite getting exactly what we wanted there, but like, I think that it kind of goes a bit by the wayside. I know we've been talking about it kind of on the cast, but you kind of don't see Tings getting quite enough credit for how impactful he was on that Radiant squad. But Variety's the one who might need to be careful. Has Benji low, but the rotation's here. Execute up, and Variety finds it anyway in the 1v2. Scary D, though, on the hunt, has the slow, so should be hard for Variety to escape, but backup is on the way. Twig finds the Sash, and great work from the Kings all across the map.
Wow, Scary. I mean, he's usually the one over here in the solo lane hoping that his jungler blocks the Fatal Strike for him, but instead it goes the other way. Scary can't get in front of that Fatal Strike. A little bit of miscommunication on where to stand. In those situations, the best thing you can do is just have someone who understands, all right, in these sorts of situations, I'm either standing still or you're standing still and I'm getting behind you. You know, those players that have played together for a long time, they've done those sorts of plays a whole lot. They understand what the other players have to do. Benji and Scary maybe not on that same wavelength quite yet. It results in the second kill of the game going the Kings' way. A great start here for the Kings, and we also just saw another great discussion point. That Greater Scorpion, as Gore would have you say 4 on that right side, has already gone down. And the question of what the timing is has been interesting, but I think on the fire side, a bit less, right? You're kind of okay with Pyromancer coming up any time. For sure, you're not worried about fire. Go ahead and grab it when you can, get those enhanced buffs, as Aurora can't quite find the number left. So is that how you see it? You know, maybe there's a little bit more over there on the Gold Fury side than you worry about on fire side? Yeah, so for two reasons. Number one, let me explain the nomenclature, because Gormai just got it right. Instead of saying Greater Scorpion on Gold Fury side or Greater Scorpion on Fire Giant side, which is just a mouthful, we're going with Gorp for Gold Fury side, Greater Scorpion, and Corp for Fire Giant side, Greater Scorpion. And that is credit to Snoopy, the one that never really into it. So I agree that taking the Gorp earlier is a little bit scarier to me, because you end up opening up a Gold Fury rush early game, where it's really easy for you to lose a fight and lose Gold Fury, and then all of a sudden you're down by a lot more gold, because Gold Fury won't spawn until Gorp is killed. However, on the right-hand side of the map, it not only makes more sense because there's way less threat of you losing a subsequent objective by killing that Greater Scorpion, but also because the right side buff enhancements are better in the early game. The light steal in the early stages, and really in the late stages on enhanced red, not nearly as impactful. The extra attack speed feels good on purple no matter what, but that's kind of it. On the right-hand side, rather, Twig actually misses his ultimate, gonna eat Scaries.
Yeah, but this time, it just means that Twig has more friends. They win the fight to start, but Twig in trouble in the back. Benji and Aurora work together to punish him, and Netrioid getting involved. Staying over and left, just dropping the ultimate. Paul takes care of Genetics. And that's pretty big for the Tartarus Titans to find a couple of response kills. This early game has not been great for him. Variety wants to try and step up and contest that blue, but with Aurora's presence, easy enough for Benji to make sure that goes over on his side. So yeah, in the end, I think Twig missing that ult hurts a lot more than maybe it initially looked like.
Would have bought a lot more time for the Kings to get there in force, but instead it's actually Variety in trouble now on this right-hand side. Aurora lurking, but Fatal Strike gets Variety out of danger. But this is a good sign for the Tartarus Titans, because that early pressure on the right was really setting up Benji for failure in this game. Variety was getting a subsequent lead, but with this help, maybe they can make it work, though now Aurora has found himself in a bad spot. Tings has the ult, and he's walled off perfectly by Genetics. Who needs good ping when you got mechanics like that between Tings and Genetics?
Yeah, it didn't look like they had miscommunication or a bad ping there. Hard to ask for a better wall than what Genetics just played. Made the ult from Tings look a little bit better, if I'm being honest, really, like dropping them out. But now it's the Greater Scorpion on the left-hand side going down. Next round, Genetics opening this up. We just talked about how important this timing can be. But they're doing it right like Oracle spawn. They'll dominate the vision on this left side of the map, and they're going to be coming in, which is a bit of a timing advantage. Look at how the beads are down a little bit, Thunder down the right-hand side. Maybe Camelot Kings, if there is a quick fight, there might not be, would come in with a bit of an advantage. So wouldn't feel too bad about dropping this right now. I think it's a good opportunity to fight, because you also can use the enhanced buffs that you just created on your side of the map to influence the subsequent Gold Fury fight. So what you could see the Kings do is drop these buffs, upgraded, pick them up, back and buy, and set up for a Gold Fury fight on Tings' ultimate timer, because he's got 20% CDR, he's got a decent amount. Now Twig getting aggressive again. But the transformation coming out from Paul, he's using it to back up a bit, as the ultimate from the Cuckoo does not quite connect in Aurora, despite having been in trouble, is A-okay. And that is a pretty big important cooldown for Paul, down for a bit. He transformed into the Nemesis on reaction, wasn't able to find much more on the backside.
Look, that's still a win for Kings, no doubt about it. Not only do you get Paul's ultimate, but more important, you get his boots as well. Yeah, sure, Twig uses his ult, Tings uses his ult, 10% CDR for Twig, 20% for Tings between his boots and that same time. So you're going to be able to get those ultimates back up with plenty of window in order to try and punish this Morgan. I would love to see the Kings try and play around the Gold Fury and just bait in the Tartarus Titans, because not only do they guarantee the best secure on the map when that field 9 wins up, but now Paul's not going to be feeling comfortable to flank you, which is usually the big concern when there's a Morgan on the other team, or try and transform into something like the Cuckoo and try and get in there and out-secure you with your own ultimate. I think this is a good opportunity.
And the Fury being started up, the Camelot Kings have it pulled. Cyclone, Sped, and Aurora, the duo, are on their way. But if Ting can get his ult up in time, there's not much they can do to contest. The Fury has been reset. The Tartarus Titans have forced the retreat from the Kings and defended the Fury for now. I think that without that ultimate right there, maybe they didn't want to keep pushing, or maybe they didn't know it was just Aurora and Cyclone Spin on the way.
Yeah, they don't have perfect ward coverage, but good enough to feel comfortable to pull that for sure. I think that Genetics and Netrioid just pulled it 2 seconds too early, 2-3 seconds too early, because Tings' ultimate came up right as they decided to reset it, and Genetics is knowing that he's taking a little bit too much damage, he's out of position, Netrioid's out of position, they're just really trying to roll the dice and wait on that Tings' ultimate perfectly timed. But if you just wait 2 seconds, you can still have Aurora and Cyclone beating on you. It's really that gold fury damage that you don't want to be holding, and then Tings can ult from a comfortable distance away, knowing his ultimate's not, that it's up, and don't have to be just spamming that force, make sure it comes out in time. So I think it's a little bit of a misreaction by Tings.
It isn't clear what the King's game plan is here, though. It's this early aggression. Twig constantly looking for these solo picks, breaking out Tings follow up, and then just pressure on these objectives. They're trying to get Fury and sure they had to give that one up, but they forced the Titans to rotate into it, and then when that didn't pan out, fine. We'll just come right on over to Pyromancer and grab that instead. I like this kind of concise, clear, early game strategy from the Kings, and it's putting the Titans to the test as Twig does find a sash, but does not get an overreaction out of Cycle.
I mean, Twig is the leader of all of the tempo right now on the map. He is the Twig and Genetics are running the way this map is flowing right now. And Scary D and Aurora have really been trying to just get there far and then be wherever the Kings are. That's what the game plan is. The 2 kills for the Titans are because the Kings initiated a fight on their side of the map. It ended up not going well, but it's the Kings the ones who are being the initiators and the aggressors, which for me I think is always the better way to do it. It's always way easier to play good Smite when it's going according to your game plan and you're not trying to formulate a counter plan to what the enemy team is doing. I wonder, how much of that is the Kings just working well as a unit, but also having Twig in the jungle who just knows how he wants to play the map and how he wants to flow through his farming route, whereas Scary D is still trying to reach that same level of cover.
The Titans know that the Fury's been pulled by the Kings. They've got a low already. There's the knockup, but you can't out-secure the Cuckoo God ultimate, and the Kings grab the very first Fury of the game, but they want Genetics in response. They already put the Nim ultimate on him, but it's not enough. Wall up, and the Kings are on the retreat, so Benji comes in, uses the ultimate, and grabs Genetics on the backside. He finds a freeze, and that gets a return kill. The Kings come roaring out of the gates.
That's a great trade for the Kings, and they might want to keep going because Variety has the long flank ready to go. Netrioid's already used that Living Nightmare, so not going to be able to use that to chase them down as Paul slips through Variety's fingers back into the mid lane, but still a 1-for-1 jungler for support and the Gold Fury on the side of the Kings. And it's the exact same thing we were talking about just a minute ago. It's the Kings who are setting the pace. They're forcing the Titans to come in and engage on their terms. And the Titans' composition isn't quite as good at that as what the Kings are at doing these initiations. I mean, you look at what someone like the Morgan wants to do. When there's already AoE ability, ring tosses in the air, it's difficult for Paul to find an angle where that's not going to chunk him as he's coming in stealth and reveal him and leave him slowed and very vulnerable. If you're the Titans' composition, you want Aurora and Benji up front, a Cyclone and Scary right behind in order to set up and get that damage off and allow Paul to come in from these flanks. With how the map is playing right now, the Kings have such a gold lead that they're going to be able to get good ward coverage. That's a Morgan's worst nightmare, and set themselves up for really good opportunities in these team fights.
Well, Netroid forcing Cyclone
He's got
Spin's
him.
ultimate out, and now Cyclone Spin forced to use the Aegis, but
Oh,
how
Paul!
can he escape? But there's backup. Paul comes in as the Chernobog, and Cyclone Spin keeps the last laugh. And that is what you mean about the Morgan. Her greatest strength is when she's sneaking in undetected.
Great call by the Tartarus Titans. I don't know if Cyclone called for the help or if Paul was ready to do it, but Netrioid had him dead to rights in that lane. No chance he loses the 1v1. But the 2v1, though, that's a different story. Paul comes in on the cavalry, basically, to come and save the day. And not only do they save Cyclone Spin's life and kill Netrioid, they also get both of Netrioid's actives as well. So even though his ultimate is up and can join the fight if necessary, if the fight were to reach out as soon as he respawns, he's going to be pretty vulnerable doing some huge play for the Titans. And now you feel like they have at least one area, one lane, where they can potentially lean on to get something.
Oh, I thought Netroid had picked up that short sword for a minute, but looks like he sold it and went for the attack speed route instead. It's Igfile in, so what you gotta think is gonna be Pins or maybe an Executioner form. And Cyclone Spin is indeed on this crit route, the 8-point shuriken, gonna be bringing a little bit more crit on the backside of that. So it looks like Netroid's taking a bit of an adjustment. He likes taking these 1v1 duels with this Igfile. Is it reasonable for him to be able to fight even Scary D at this point? He's got a pretty big lead over him, so I'd imagine so. He's at a point where he's gonna kind of stand his ground and respond when the trouble gets there. Absolutely, and he can do it really well. I mean, Chernobog very good in those 1v1 scenarios because you have an attack speed stim that does damage on the front end, and that can be really difficult to deal with. His passive factors in, and of course, the Ichabod just so good in those 1-on-1 scenarios. It's why Netrioid was crushing Cyclone in the 1v1. It was really the, obviously mechanics played a huge role, but the build difference, Netrioid was very intelligent in going for that trade, knowing the difference in their builds. The Executioner for Cyclone, not nearly as good at fighting the enemy ADC one-on-one.
Pyromancer taken by the Kings. On the back of their aggression, Variety is in the back. They're looking for Scary D, who's way too squishy. Perfect wall from Genetics, but the follow-up still is not there. Variety having to chase on his own and cannot find the execute, so Scary D makes his way out. The ultimate from Kings connects with a roar, and Twig is there to clean it up, but impaled by Cyclone Spin, making his way into the battle. But it's the Titans who are scattered, as great work from Paul to turn into the CC immune Variety that allows him to escape with the ultimate, because he was in trouble off that wall from Genetics. Ends up being 1-for-0 in favor of the Kings.
It just feels like the Kings have all the momentum right now. I mean, nothing the Tartarus Titans are throwing at them seems to be working. And the tier 1 tower and mid goes down. Love the way that the Kings have just used their CC in this game. Genetics has looked phenomenal so far on this Ymir. Still a little skeptical of this teleport. I wonder, I'm looking for how ineffective or effective. Yeah, I mean, it didn't really do that much for the early game, but it certainly hasn't hurt him too much. All he needs is the blink, it feels like. Love the build that he's gone for. Wingblade, an old classic on Ymir. It's better than it's ever been because now it has some protections on it, and it's great in this game up against the Anhur and the Nemesis, two characters that are going to slow you consistently. Genetics has been a real factor so far.
Oni Fury in the sights now of the Camelot Kings. The Titans not yet in position to contest, and truly, how can they contest when it's the Cuckoo ult on the other side? Netroid does drop his beads, gives respect over to Aurora, potentially landing that stun. So the Tartarus Titans get something in response, but this game is out of control already. It's a 6,000 gold lead for the Kings, and the Titans struggling to come up with any kind of answer.
Yeah, don't love that use of purification beads there by Netrioid. Think that probably, I don't know if his dash was down, but ends up being a little bit more difficult, I think, for him to play aggressive with those beads down. He needs the CC of him for the other side. The Titans have a good amount of CC on their own end as well. So I think Netrioid's got to be a little careful now after using those purification beads. Or maybe he didn't really need to.
A little cautious there from Netrioid left-hand side, perhaps. Wasn't taking the Executioner for him next. Afterwards of his build, Cyclone Spin seems to be all in on the Prince. Already has the Wind Demon short sword right behind it. And that might be a bit of a way for the Titans back in. Some big crit damage on someone who's not suspecting it, but, I mean, even Twig, Shifter Shield on Keeley and the Wingblade, they have a bit more survivability than you expect. You might need to get to Tings or Netroid for that to have the effect they actually want. As there's a skirmish here over in right. Benji and Scary take a little bit of a battle up against Variety and Twig, and the Kings are the one with backup on the way. So the Titans retreat, don't want any more of this action. But even though this game is, pretty thoroughly in Camelot Kings' control, we've seen games way more than this where the other team has come back. I'm not counting the Titans out just yet.
Agreed. I mean, the Titans are a team that has so much veteran experience on their side that you definitely can't count them out. I mean, how many games did Paul and Scary D win last year where it looked like they had no shot? Almost all of their finals, / all of their semifinals games, the quarterfinals games. That's what this team was really, really adept at. So that those guys, at the very least, are quite comfortable in this position. But I'm also sure that they wish they were in a better position than they are in right now. I'm surprised that the prevalence of the Spear of the Magus pickups here, essentially. No desolation for big man tanks. I guess it makes sense if you're going for this Pendulum of Ages, which is already picked up. People are afraid to starter very early on. With both Pendulum of Ages and cooldown boots, if you went for, whenever you go for a power pot, you would be 10% overcapped, but I feel like the Deso Pass is so good I wouldn't mind.
No, not at all, but we have seen some variance here on these mid-lane mage builds and where they want to go. So 14's feeling comfortable and hard to complain. He's having such a good game. Looks like the Camelot Kings are not going to slow down their pressure, though. Fire Giant, the next thing in their sights. They already have it started up. Benji, Scary D, and Aurora are all nearby, though, within shouting distance of catching up to the fire. Good freeze from Genetics. It's too low. In comes the ultimate, and the Kings secure the Fire Giant cleanly. It looks like they're going to take the fight on the backside. At least that's what the Titans would love. Netroid goes back in with the ultimate on the wrong side of the wall, makes his way with his dash towards safety, and now the Kings indeed are looking to turn it around.
And this is where that lead comes into play. This wall walls off Cyclone Spin, keeps Benji on their side. Benji falls, as does Aurora. I think the Titans are getting routed.
That's it for Paul. It's a double kill for Big Man Ting. Cyclone Spin falls as well. And the Camelot Kings about as comfortable in position as you could ask for. As now they have all 5 members just Scary up on the other side and plenty of towers to collect the lead. That'll get a whole lot worse for the Tartarus Titans. As they get to push right on down. Right, no reason this isn't a Phoenix. Maybe even a little more.
Yeah, I think they're going to be quite a bit here for the Kings. Their throne feeling awfully comfortable right now. I feel like they are sitting pretty here in game number 1. This right side Phoenix is absolutely toast. It's just the Tartarus Titans. I mean, on that Fire Giant footprint guaranteed. But
Tartarus Titans, aren't they? I mean, to get plenty more power plays you could ask from this team, and they've done everything clinically. From the beginning of this game, they came in with a game plan, and they're executing on it near flawless.
Yeah, never once did it feel like the Titans were in control of this match. I mean, it's been Kings from minute 1 now to minute 25, and of course in Season 8, these starter item upgrades are a huge power spike for these players. Not only are you ahead because you're now level 20 and max level, but now you get to upgrade these starters, and 4 out of 5 have done it for the Kings. Interesting that Genetics chose not to go into the Compassion, instead finished off that Sovereignty. Whereas you look on the other side, you're looking at a Protector of the Jungle from Scary D. He's lucky to get into the jungle from this position. You're not going to be getting that passive benefit here underneath your Phoenix.
Genetics doing big damage up there as he brings a roar down low. That is also the Desert Fury and the ultimate from Scary D all expended. Left side Phoenix Siege resumes, and the Camelot Kings seem to have the resources. In comes Benji. That does get the beads out from Netrioid, but in the back, Tings' ultimate caused all kinds of problems, and now Variety trying to keep up the chase, get some backup from Twig, looking plenty comfortable back in the jungle as he takes care of a Cyclone Spin. That is it for the duo lane of the Tartarus Titans, and the Camelot Kings going to keep up there efficiently, keep up how well they've been dotting their I's and crossing their T's by coming back from the mid-Phoenix. And Genetics now getting some TP value.
Absolutely massive TP pickup from Genetics. TP walk-up freeze, baby. You love to see it.
He's going to win the game down a relic.
Yeah, he sure is at this point. Sash in from Twig, Paul, nowhere to go. 3 in a row for Variety. And the Camelot Kings come out purple robes, squeaky clean from game number 1. No doubter from them to kick off Season 8.
So again, if we're starting to establish trends, if we see this continued play out of Big Man Tings, it's going to be a very scary 3v3 to deal with, and then Genetics gets teleport on Ymir. I mean, what is going on here? This 3 versus 3 looks so strong for this Kings team. Let's jump into picks and bans, though, Goremizer, for game number 2. That was a first pick Ymir, remember? So it's going to be a first ban Ymir. The teleport Ymir draws a ban from the Titans. You got to be kidding me. All right, so that then is going to open something up. Granted, the Titans will have that first pick, so something opens up for them to grab if it is left there. Tiamat's still around. They're going to ban Cerberus as well. Playing with house money are the Titans in that first pick spot.
Yeah, Athena, Yamoja, 2 tanks that were banned last time, not banned this time around. Persephone, that makes sense. The Achilles, so all 3 of the rotationary bans here from the Titans is specifically to target out what the Kings did. And again, you get pick of the litter, but there's a certain number, right? When you are wiggling around and working with your first pick, now you have to decide, do we like Yamoja? Do we like Athena? Like, which of these top 2 picks that we did not ban do we like more? Because with them banning 3 there on the Titans, that means the Kings are going to get 2, right? So they kind of almost played themselves. No matter what they pick, even if it's the number 1, the Kings get number 2 and number 3 on that list. They're going to be feeling pretty solid for themselves. And all 2 mid laners were banned out. There's a lot of Assassins, a lot of Guardians that are high priority right now, still available.
Well, Yamoja draws the pick over what we assume, again, it's an assumption, will at some point be an Athena pick for one of these 2 teams. Remember, we have seen Athena in solo, we've seen Athena in jungle, we've seen Athena in support. So still could happen for this Titans team if Athena is left open down the stretch here. I love the fact, and I think you love this if you're a Kings fan, that we've already seen 2 respect bans immediately drawn after game 1, Ymir. And then I think Variety had a great game on the Achilles as well, weaving through some of those executes, controlling that front line. So if you're a Kings fan, you're loving the fact that there's already 2 gods that are respect banned away from a couple of the guys on your team. On her, Goremizer, first pick overall, followed by the Kukulkan, a fantastic 1-2 punch of damage. Kings have already got their back line, sorted.
I mean, it is a day, right? Like, on her I could see, but even if with a great performance, Kukulkan being picked up over a lot of other things here does admittedly surprise me. Go back to last year, he was a very prominent pick during Phase 1, so it's not maybe as surprising as it could be. We know this is a very solid mage, but number 2 overall over things like the Heimdall and the Guan Yu, like, I feel like this top 3 for the Titans is objectively stronger, whereas the top 2 for the Kings so far, maybe this top 3, depending on what they log in right here, is going to be, based on what they just did, better, because this Kukulkan was incredibly good for them. On her, was able to fit the ropes. We did almost see, I believe it was Cyclone getting soloed, but he got saved there towards the very end. And so I think it's interesting to see now that the Honor on the other side, what it's going to be able to do and what he'll be able to bring. But this is a really solid, again, top 3 over there for the Titans. Look at Ramsey.
Yeah,
she's into this. She's invested. She wants to know what the next pick is.
It's your first official Ramsey update of the year. When I had her last year, she was what, 2, 3, 4 months old, maybe? She's 54 pounds, months old, whatever it may be. She's 8 months old and 33 pounds nowadays. So Ramsey, there's your official Ramsey update, day 1 here of Season 8 of the SPL. Goremizer, Ramsey's eyes are locked on the screen here. Mine are as well. Guan Yu, you've mentioned, fell down the draft board just a little bit here, surprising given what we've seen at the SEC level. And then Sun Wukong there as well. So we've got now another, what should be, very interesting, aggressive, dualistic matchup out of that soul lane by gods that can then transition that into controlling the backline so well for your team.
I mean, I want to hyper focus in on it, but I see that Najah ban. It's just another respect ban out, right? It's coming through. Either way, like you said, Guan Yu, I expect to have a little bit better of a time than Wukong. At the end of the day, both of them are very prominent solo laners, like you said. Bluestone Wukong, it's back, of course, here in Season 8, so I expect this to be a very prominent and pretty early game Wukong that comes through, at least in terms of lane presence. Then, of course, late game, he'll do the same things he was doing last year. I think very, very prominent in the middle of a team fight and very successful with all that. Now, paired with an Athena on the front line, I think that is going to be a really formidable duo of the frontline players to have to deal with, especially a taunt into a slow or any sorts of damage that Wukong can come and bring up. It's going to be be a lot of setup once again for this Cuckoo Khan. It's going to make it a lot easier to hit those ults, a lot easier to really connect on a lot of these things and get the damage out there. So the Kings, their front line is just playing, I would argue, the best way you can, which is we're going to set up our backliners for success. We're going to let them find all the freest damage we can in the world, and we're just going to win because of it.
Goran, let me ask though, I mean, you ban out Ymir as a respect ban, you ban out the Achilles as a respect ban. I'm being yelled at for not petting the dog, so I'll pet the dog. Are you surprised that Cerberus is the pick that ends up, or the ban rather, that ends up getting drawn out here by the Titans instead of something like the Cuckoo Khan? Big Man Ting's looking near unstoppable with a little bit of setup there in game number 1, and it's now given right back to him with maybe even more setup here in game number 2. A big Athenaton to do a Spirit of the 9 wins. I mean, you're not sassing one target and deleting them. You're pulling 2-3 people in at a time potentially, and now a Horus. I got to admit, Gore, I'm a little surprised the Cuckoo Khan makes its way through into Big Man Ting's hands once again.
When you've got Guan Yu and Yamoja over there on the other side, is this a game where the Kings kind of have to win the fight quickly, or they're going to struggle in a long, prolonged fight against all this healing?
Yeah, I think so, because it's not only just the healing, but you want to talk about sustained DPS in a team fight. Hunter's the best for that. So no traditional mage here for the Tartarus Titans. Instead, they've got Ao Kuang in the jungle. I think Ao Kuang's in a really strong spot right now. I wouldn't be surprised if more junglers started picking him up at the SEC and SPL level. I like the pick quite a bit here for Scary. Paul, one of the premier mid-lane Hunter players in the league, of course, Dardan's is the premier mid-Hunter player in my mind, but Paul not too far behind. He's really impressed me whenever he picks up these types of gods. I just think that the Titans have gone with something that is unmess-upable come late game. That's the way I look at this composition. Like, you just have more sustain, you have more sustained DPS, whereas the Camelot Kings is about synergy and being on point as a unit once again. I mean, you've got this setup for this Cuckoo Khan and for this on her. You've got double setup between the Athena and the Horus. I think the Kings composition really comes online right around that 15 to early 20 minutes mark. I think they're definitely stronger than the Titans on the first few 5v5s. But if we get to 35 minutes or so, I think the Titans composition is just almost impossible to stop, in my mind. I think it's going to be too difficult to get past Aurora, who's one of the premier Yamoja players in the league. All that sustained, plus Benji's Guan Yu, plus Double Hunter. I mean, they've got objective DPS, they've got siege potential, they've got everything in this composition, but they have to get to late for it to realize and come together. The Kings, I'm looking for them to hit the gas pedal in the mid-game and try and leverage their comp strengths there.
That's what they're going to need to do here in this one, isn't it? It almost feels that the Camelot Kings really need that first Cuckoo ult to hit, right? Or else they'll be in sort of this long, drawn-out fight that's their way. I'm also a little surprised at Genetics in this Horus. He's played it before, but felt a little bit like a wrong you special last year. Maybe Netroid asking his new support to hop on that one for him. But either way, I think it's something that can at least help them keep him a bit with that sustained. Horus has some of that healing that will be helpful for him in that fight, but this feels like one where the Camelot Kings can't afford to kind of sit on their hands. And for what it's worth, they didn't in game 1, did they? They were constantly on objectives, constantly putting the Tartarus Titans to question and forcing them over and respond. So they can find a way to establish that same pressure. I mean, it's not quite the job, but I think the jungle can certainly still set the pace here, I think, in Twitch's hands. I think they're going to... I agree. I think that the way the Kings played that last game, pace setting, being on objectives and us on time, working all together as a unit around those objectives, is really, really easy to keep that sort of train and momentum going whenever you've got an Athena on your team, because Genetics can walk up first and be there a little bit too early potentially, and then just get the reinforcement coming from Twig. The same can be said the other way around, right? I mean, Horus has this guy's ultimate, he can get there faster than most other Guardians. So I just think that this competition is well drafted for the Kings. I'm excited to see what they can do in that mid game, but I do think that they're on a clock in this one, because the Titans' composition late game is fearsome to say the least. Still on game, man. We don't see him as much, but that is a strong ADC, and he's able to get those items on. Take a look at this pathing that's being taken by Scary D. He ends up coming back towards Twig. Perhaps he was looking for a duo lane wrap around the gank, but once Twig spots that out, no chance of that being successful anymore. You talked a little bit about how you expect Ao Kuang to be stronger, maybe even picked up a little bit more. I think you've got a point there, man. He can be, or at least was considered before to be a little bit slow. I don't know if that's the case for him anymore. Like maybe 1 or 2 items on those boots and running ready to scrap.
Agreed. He doesn't take that long. I mean, he's got pretty good damage these days. He sustains pretty well because of his passive. He's just good. He's just a good god. That's all there is to it. I mean, the most recent changes were at the end of Season 7 for this god, so it's been a little bit since he's really seen that type of love. But with a bigger map, it's harder to punish him. It's harder to sit on top of him and steal away all of his farm constantly. With that in mind, he's able to get to that 1 or 2 item power spike a little bit easier. Rod of Tahuti being better is really good for this god. He really leverages that item super well because that initial burst of damage gets you below that 50% threshold, and then all of a sudden, you're just getting absolutely cut to pieces by that Dragon Call.
These blue buff invades are the game plan for Camelot Kings, but luckily Scary D is here to help defend as well. Blue buff does get dropped on the Order side, and not much chance the Camelot Kings can look for more aggression on the backside of it, but they were there. and just about in position to be the aggressors on it, just not quite in time. I like this from the Camelot Kings. They are coming in with a clear game plan to put on pressure, but Variety in trouble. Has that Somersault Cloud and the Defender of Olympus, so Benji forced out quite a bit of response, but more than force out, now my man is in trouble. The response from the Kings is just too strong. That's first blood.
Again, it's the Kings are just in control, right? Never for a minute do you feel like Variety has made some sort of huge misplay and caught himself off guard, though Ting might be in the wrong position here, but Aurora comes in, does a ton of damage. Great ultimate, absolutely perfect, and then no one's there. And that's it. You get the beads out from Ting, so certainly worthwhile. You force him back to base. It's good work by Aurora, but no kill on the board playing against the Titans, whereas Variety takes the ultimate from Benji, and then the Kings are there in force in order to punish him on the back end.
For Guan Yu in particular, it's so binary for his gank, for a lot of gods, but especially him. When that force is up,
there's really just no shot of being able to catch up to him and lock him down, maybe within a mirror wall, but even still. But once that's down, there's hope as Paul drops the ultimate. That allows him to take Genetics out of the fight. Twig steps up, finds some nice engage onto Aurora, but they cannot afford to keep up the aggression. I thought we might see Genetics stop on him, but there was backup for the rest of the Titans. I like the Kings kind of resetting. I don't think they need to take an impromptu battle. They've been doing a great job taking the ones they've scheduled and just kind of responding to those effectively. I like them playing it a bit cool there.
Well, no surprise to me that Paul is still Paul here in Season 8. One of the things that always impresses me about Paul's game is his relic usage is really good. Probably the best of any backliner in the SPL. It's what makes him so hard to kill. And right there, didn't even need to use a relic. Genetics blinks over the vine, comes in at a weird angle that Paul normally probably wouldn't be used to. And not only does he not have to beads, but before Fracture hits him, 180 through the realms to Genetics out of his face. Just got him out of there. And not only does it keep him nice and safe, but put Genetics in an awkward position as well. So that's what I'd expect more and more of for Paul. And that's why this Horus is so good as an engagement god, as an enabler for your damage. But his engagements are pretty telegraphed. You know, you're blinking or you're 3-ing to somebody, and then you're dashing in a straight line at someone. And someone like Paul is not going to get caught using beads too late. He's not going to get caught with his ultimate the vast majority of the time. That one is something that I think an interaction that we're going to see as this game continues.
A bit of a roundup on these builds. Pauling in on Heimdall, essentially building no different than what we did over in the duo lane.
Now there's a bit of action. Those vines come up and separate this fight a bit. That's the River's Rebuke down from Aurora, and Twig is the target on this Athena. But can he escape? There will be no defending Olympus today. Aurora catches Twig before he can make that escape. It looked like Twig kind of had some backup there, but kind of got separated back towards that gold through the side.
Now it's Ting's in trouble in mid. Beats used, but it doesn't matter. Benji is going to be able to put the Titan's second kill on the board, and Variety thought he was going to be able to get him back, but Paul says no.
Instead lands right in the thick of it. Scary D is there, but Captain Twig never got Defender of Olympus off. It is still available to use here, and the execute doesn't connect. Variety just gets knocked up, comes right back down to take care of Scary D. Somehow the Camelot Kings make that into a 1-for-1 mid for jungle.
Okay, I'm going to need to see a replay of that if we can, but I think Genetics might have just made the biggest brain play I've ever seen. Because Variety was in execute range, and I think Genetics was out of heal range. The travel time, you only heal when you arrive. So I think Genetics healed the clone to get the heal proc to go off in the AoE, and thus took Variety out of execute range and made sure that Scary died instead of him. If that's what happened on EU Ping for the 50,000th time, I'm done, man. I'm losing it. That is absolutely wild if that's what happened. Either way, the result is good for the Kings. Scary falls, and Variety keeps that 2-0 record looking pristine.
It's a next start for him, here to Genetics. I was one of his critics coming into this season, but
Same.
I don't know, man. I'm happy to see him do well, and that's exactly what he's done in an absurd circumstance for what it's worth, as he's been making plays for the Kings so far. It's worth noting, though, that Aurora is ahead, but there is a trade-off. Vivian Tings is way ahead over in the middle lane. It is far enough playing up where they like it for the Titans, as they are still a bit behind some of those key goals. Late beginning of the season so far. I know it's only 1 and a third of a game here so far, but as far as a 1 1/3 game can go, it's hard to ask for much better than what we've seen from Genetics here so far. So you talked about how that Rod is tweaking himself down in the jungle. That's exactly where he's gone. It's boots into Rod. Looks like, though, we're going to take a look back at how he managed to survive and does just barely get out of that execute threshold.
Crazy. Maybe it was a pot ticking as well, because Genetics heal came in a little bit later, so it must have been a potion tick up above that threshold. And that, it's an overused word by no one abuses it more than me, but that is unlucky right there for Scary D. You hate to see it for him. At the end of the day, though, I mean, he's still in a good spot. He's above Twig in farm. That's where I think this lead for Tings might be coming from, though. Twig is now in trouble. Aurora with a good wall, but that's a Guardian, even though she's in the jungle. And Athena is A-OK. That's Aurora and Cyclone Spin's ultimates that really don't amount to much. About half of Captain Twig's health bar taken off the board.
I'm with you on the unlucky there. And I'm surprised Twig kind of in the same spot where that Rivers of Butte caused such problems for him before. Genetics on the way with the ultimate, and Aurora is the target. Revenge for the Kings in the middle lane as they find the enemy support this time, and they are not done. Looking for Scary D as well, who's forced to use the beads in order to evade capture. Now Cyclone's been considering coming in. Yeah, I like exactly where he is right now. Not a single step further, and he does come in and provide a little bit of damage, but that is all. Camelot Kings doing a good job finding these all-in commitments.
They are. They're using these combos very effectively, but it hasn't amounted to as much as it did last game. The Titans are doing a much better job at fighting back, being more proactive. I mean, even these ultimates from Aurora, they haven't amounted to as much as they probably should, but at the end of the day, at least they're working on something. You know, at least they're pushing the tempo themselves instead of just waiting around and using it as counter engage. Feels like Aurora is going, hey guys, I don't care if anyone's here, I've got this guy trapped. Come kill him. I've got this guy trapped again. Come kill him. And we're just gonna keep doing that until everyone's on the same page. Until we're all here, and then I'm gonna trap him and we're gonna kill him, and it's gonna go a lot better for us. So I like the style that Aurora's gone for. Genetics as well as he's played. I think Aurora's looked really, really good this game as well. He's been ahead of the farm all game and looking very strong on this emoji.
Good reaction there. Gets him out of the clutches of Captain Twig. We saw for a moment the Titans were considering starting up that 3. These two teams are kind of coming at this very complete opposite directions. Titans are way better at TPSing it down, but are not going to be able to help secure what they can do on the other side of that. Camelot Kings have some different approaches to it, and often the same result. These are two teams who had kind of taken Furies before you can react. Just did not pan out for them over on that left side. Now, I know you were saying the Kings start to lose some of their effectiveness the later this game goes on. Is this pace from the Kings here enough? It's been good. They've been aggressive. Maybe this is our answer. They come right on over to the Fury and dare the Tartans to stop them, and there's not much they can do. Cuckoo won't come through, and the Kings get a big objective on the map.
And Genetics already channeling the to the skies to get. I love Druids. Got to be careful. Aurora has that, and that's his own in buff. Easy off in mission. But it looks like the Kings, I mean, they used a lot of ultimates. They're coming to try and bail Variety out of danger.
Paul, though, makes it out. Bifrost so strong for safety, and in comes Benji on the top side. Meanwhile, in the back, Netroid just winning the 1v2. Did I see that correctly? As now he finds Aurora. Double kill with a little bit of assistance. And next up's going to be Benji. No taunt available for Twig to lock him down just yet. But what a sequence from the Kings. There it is. Taunt almost does it on its own, and Benji takes a seat alongside the other two members of the Titans. These Kings are having a hell of a start.
First off, shout out to Bird Form Only, baby. Variety getting in there with that one on off the blink. But how about the Kings? Netroid standing tall. He's building for it again. This Ichabod just leveraging that early game pressure that Honor is going to bring. You were asking me right before that Gold Fury pull, is this enough from the Kings? And I really thought that it was, not because of their lead being bigger than it looked or anything like that, but I don't look at this draft and think hyper early game. This is the big game that I was talking about. This is where you get your core items online, and you're able to use your multiple forms of engagement. Your carries are doing significant damage at this point, and the healing and the tankiness isn't there quite yet from Aurora and from Benji. I mean, you're getting healing through things like cooldown as one. That's your heal count, is how much your cooldown is. Right now, he's only sitting at that 20%. Now, he's got that Catena shield at this point, but that's going to up his healing and the healing from Aurora and the life steal, all of it. I love the shield here, but he's going to need more and more itemization in order to get to his max healing potential. And you look at someone like Alquang, he's strong now that he has Rod, but he's going to be way stronger once he gets Telkines and some more pen and things like that. This is the perfect time for the Kings to step on the gas, and they're going straight to fire. Wow. I love it. They understand how their comp's supposed to work.
Yeah, and even if it's not about getting the objective right, you want to force Tartarus Titans to come in. You take whichever one, the favorite fight or the objective. They don't quite, though, get the fight they were looking for, and I think Cyclone's been doing a good job of spreading out this map, not all in rotating here the way that maybe some of the rest of the Kings are, and that lets him take care of that tier 1 tower left. No, it didn't quite pan out for them there, Aggro, but I'm right there with you. That's the logic they should be operating with, where they're setting themselves up for win-wins either way it goes.
And look, that doesn't work. Netroid loses a lot of farms. Cyclone gets a lot of farms. But the thing that I like so much about what the Kings have done so far is that they have been decisive. You know, no one wants the King to be waffling on what they want to do. The Kings seem like they have made up their mind coming into every single engagement of what the plan is. We're going to go to Fire Giant. Hopefully it works. All right, it didn't work. What are we going to do? Well, we can't let Cyclone free push, so a lot of teams would be like, oh, should we pull Fire? I mean, we still have, you know, like there's this whole discussion. No hesitation from the Kings. It's no, we're stopping. We're not going to go for this play. We're going to send Netroid back. We can't let Cyclone get all that free farm and push away Phoenix. Now they're going to reset and likely go for a similar style with where Netroid's coming over. We're going to try on Fire again. We still have Benji's cooldown on beads. We're still playing strong, but now our wave's in a much safer position for us to make a play like this.
Yeah, to start this up once more and force the Titans to have an answer. Looks like they do have a ward, though, on that fire, so this is not a secret, but Variety playing the defense. In comes Aurora, and he's the only one this far forward to look for a contest. Meanwhile, Variety makes it up to the Somersault Cloud. The Fire Giant still low, and inside the threshold where a Cuckoo will take care of it. Genetics falls, but the Kings get the biggest objective on the map, and Variety even still finds the kill onto Scary D. The rest of the Kings retreating. And so far, this is looking like a very successful play.
Very successful. Cyclone still laboring on this left-hand side. He's going to be able to get this if he sticks around, but with Variety already back and with Blink up, he makes the right call, doesn't. stick around for that tier 2 instead. Just takes the L. The only thing that went wrong there is that Genetics fire tanking was poor. We'll go with poor in that instance. But other than that, flawless.
Paul drops the beads and the ultimate to try and find some breathing room. Hops onto the Bifrost, takes a nice ride. Will find himself finding good company in Aurora. And so that'll be enough for them to disengage. But yeah, I'm with you. Maybe kind of the only problem. I was wondering, you saw that tower shield from him and shifter shield so popular right now. That is where he's going. Kind of saying, listen, it's not going to be Paul and Selecting Spin that deal with me. It's going to have to be Scary D that kind of cuts through all this with some of that magical defense. And I kind of like that stance, right? Kind of forcing Scary's attention on him, or he'll just be an unkillable must.
And Scary's at a point where he doesn't. Scary's irrelevant in this game right now. He's just too far behind. He got soloed by Variety in that fight, and Variety didn't need any help or need a blink or anything. He ulted, I guess, but that's about it. So Scary now has Telkine, so it's better. But I mean, he is a full item now to Captain Twig on the other side. Now, sure, Telkines and Rod both expensive, whereas Binding and Witchblade both cheap, but
Twig has a Rod at Tahuti at this point. I mean, he's spent significant gold. Scary looks a little bit behind in the jungle so far. And look, that's expected. He's brand new to the role. You're going up against Captain Twig, who's coming back to a role that he played for years and years and years at a very, very high level. But you gotta, I think everyone was looking for how is Scary gonna do in the jungle. So far, not too great. He's dead.
No, and it's not gonna get much better, is it? He does manage to get away for a moment. Looks like the Bluestone ticks won't be enough,
blink.
so Variety goes up to the ultimate. Now the blink comes out, but I think the inevitable result was attained. Not much chance of him escaping. Meanwhile, Twig getting aggressive elsewhere can always show up with that ultimate. Perfectly fine with this way to split the map here for the Kings. And they're going to move right on to this left side Phoenix, it looks like. They've got a wave coming in not too far behind them. And Genetics is going to be the one to kind of move this squad. I wonder where the call is. Maybe back to the tier 2 in mid. Takes him just kind of a little bit over. Not all that far, but I think they'll take it.
Yeah, I think the idea was we'll cut off Benji. Then Benji knows that it's happening because the Titans spotted out. Probably could have gotten that left side Phoenix, but safe rather than sorry. You're in such a commanding position here as the Kings. If you just wipe out these tier 2s, go back, get Pyromancer, you're up 10k and ready to go and set up for this next Fire Giant fight, where it's still, I mean, like I said, the Titans, if they get to hyper late game, this comp is so strong that the team synergy doesn't concern me too much. But we are now a good 15 minutes from that point. And the Kings, I think they got plans for the next 15 minutes, man. They're not going to wait around for the Titans to get strong enough to contest.
The Titans are going to have to find, looking like several miracle defenses to try and stall out the path that the Kings are currently on. It's just not going to get a whole lot easier there for the Polyomicon there for Twig. Shifters rounding it out for Variety. It's like more crit coming in for Netrion. Hardware here for just to add that magic defense in an aura, just in case Scary does become a problem. Even a little bit of damage there from Aurora as well. Once again, it feels like they're rounding these builds out with some great ways to shut the door on their opposition, make sure they don't end up in all that much trouble. So where do they go first here on this one, Avro? Should they come up over the left, push down on this mid? How do you want to see them go about the siege? Or are they even waiting for another fire spawn before they come all the way down?
I wait for another fire spawn. That's where you want to take the fight if you can.
If you're the Titans, but if you can get another pick over here on this left-hand side, Scary invisible, but Twig smelling dragon somewhere around here. He's going to find him, and I don't think Scary's getting out of this one.
No, instead realizes he's got to try and turn and fight. No hope of that being successful. And that will be it for Scary D. And it looks like in the 5v4, maybe they push up. Nope. That's going to be the back. That's showing Captain Twig both returning, and they want to lead them on over here towards this Fire Giant, as you said. And there should be really no contest, I'd imagine, on this one. If I'm the Titans, I'm kind of doing like my best to set up my defense back in the phase and hoping to kill them off. Really not much of a shot if you slow this down. Keep going into it.
But again, this composition is not meant to siege defense for the Titans because you've got no mage to put the wave. You've got just sustained DPS. You don't normally on siege defense, burst damage is very valuable because if you can chunk somebody like the tank who's going to be tanking the Phoenix or the carrier who's going to be hitting the Phoenix, if you can chunk them, it forces them to reset. That buys you time to go back to your own fountain, heal up, be ready for the next wave or whatever is coming in whenever they start to fight again. Sustained DPS is not great on siege defense because the front line is going to be so staunch that you can't get to that back line. And so you can't bring that big burst of damage. Now, if you can chunk through and eat Genetics or Variety or Twig alive with these auto attacks, I mean, you're deep enough in the build now. Upgraded starters for both
Cyclone and Paul. You've got potential to try and insta-kill a frontliner before they're expecting your damage to be that high. But Twig's got Bumba's Hammer Polynomicon. If the Kings want, they can stand on the Phoenix edge and just reach auto down with the Polyprocs and the Bumba's procs on the Phoenix. Titans are going to have to answer that. Like, they don't even need a full wave in order to do it. Look at that damage.
Yeah, and really, since the beginning of this set, have the Kings even broken stride? It hasn't felt like it so far. It's felt like plan A has just worked for them all set long, and they're whittling these Phoenixes down. Just as you said, it's Twig and Variety, a 3-2 split in MiG, and there is the dive in for Variety. He blinks into the response from Scary D is to look for DPS. There's just not that much there. They keep Variety and Twig at bay for now, but this is going to be a long, drawn-out push. If the Kings are happy with it, I think they probably could afford to all in, but I think they're happy with this pace too.
I mean, they just got Paul's beads and ult, so that's a huge get for just Variety's blink. I think the main thing that they're going to have to worry about is that, remember, that they don't have the sustain. It's the sustains on the other end. The Titans are the one with all the healing.
See a Fire Giant keeping that out because Scary D's taking so much damage. There's the reach, nearly putting him down alone, but Variety with the Somersault Cloud gets the kill. That pulls too many over to mid, but they Horus everyone over. Genetics pulls off the Okie Doke. They take care of the mid Phoenix, and now it's on to right. Meanwhile, Variety is a wall. No chance that the Titans can get past that. The right side Phoenix, a distant memory, and the Titans never even get to play defense. In comes Aurora with that River's Rebuke, looking to cut off the fight, and they do put Variety down low, but it's just nowhere near enough. How is he still alive? Defenders Olympus putting in work.
This Athena, man, this got past 10 bans. It got past 10 bans, I think, right?
They picked it in the second round, yeah. Yep,
right,
exactly.
That is wild to me. I have no idea how that keeps happening, man. Bumba's Poly Athena just soloed Scary D from a distance as a Guardian. Like, that's what we just saw happening. That is not chill, man. I'm not loving that if I'm Scary D. I'm telling you that much. It feels completely unfair when you're playing against it, and Twig is really putting it to work. I love the way he's playing it.
Tartarus Titans still have one leg to stand on. Variety makes it up to the sky and will begin the process of healing. Left side Phoenix is low, and the Kings want it. Netroid steps up, has the damage, but they cannot take care of the Phoenix just yet. So fall back, get some heals from Genetics and the Fire Giant, and then plan on coming back in. They still don't have the ult for Genetics or Twig, just Tings and Netroid, and that taunt finds two. Tings flattens Aurora, and no interaction points for my man to find a way to respond.
And this left side Phoenix on its last legs, the base of the Titans on its last legs, taunted on Paul, no shot, 5 in a row for Netroid.
So in the late game, taunt's just a death sentence, huh? Well, we just saw it just now. And if you don't have a response, there is no way to get back out. The Kings move onto the Titan, another taunt just for good measure, and the very first set of SPL Season 8 belongs to the Kings.
Hail to the Kings, baby. It's that easy. That whole game was in Camelot, by the way. Home court advantage, it turns out, for the Kings, because they made it look so simple. I just love the way that they all I mean, remember, these are 5 players. There have been some teammates in the past. You know, Twig and Variety have played together in the past. These 5 guys did not play together at all last year, but they have come in, and whoever is doing the majority of the shot calling, whoever is calling the macro for them, whether it be Genetics or Twig, usually it's the support or the jungler, the fact that all 5 players have bought in is the thing that really impresses me. That they seem like they are all on a tight leash. They trust one another already, and I'm impressed with what I saw from them.
I said coming in, I don't know if there's a team in the league with more to prove than the Kings. Well, I think they just proved it. It'll be a quick break, but we'll be right back to break this all down.
That music works so well. The mismatch video with music, it's all joyful and dancey, and it's Heimdall killing off some skeletons or something. What a world. Welcome back to the SPOs, the post-game breakdown after the Camelot Kings take out the Tartarus Titans. And Gore, that is, I think, a gentle way of putting it. This was not particularly close after the first couple of minutes. This Kings team came in with a lot of question marks. We'll reiterate our talking point from the start of the day. We thought there would be some growing pains because you're throwing together a bunch of guys who don't have all that much history in playing with one another, and they just decimate this Titans team. I mean, this was clinical from the Camelot Kings.
I mean, look, you go back not even a week ago. Go back 2 days ago. Yesterday, we were talking about the Titans as a team we all expected to be top 3 minimum, right? And let's be honest, there's still a lot of room for that. But I didn't think the Kings, at least this early on, were going to be as heavy a contender for the top 4. I thought it was going to take maybe half a phase, at least a couple of weeks, right, to get everything under wraps. This is, I think, more of a statement from them and maybe more of a statement about the Titans than we would have really expected. I mean, it's just day one. That's literally the first set of the SPL. First off, congratulations to them for striking first blood and what is going to be a long year, 3 phases of play that they'll have to go through. But that is the way you want to start it. All expectations are on the other team. You look, I mean, Paul, Scary D, 2 back-to-back world champs playing on a team together. Benji, Aurora, Cyclone. I mean, you've got so many champions on one side of the map here for the Titans, whereas, you know, unfortunately for well, people like Twig, I was going to say that, you know, I mean, he's always been, you know, the bridesmaid, never the bride, always making it to the finals, never quite cresting there. I mean, Netroid, literally 5-0-2. He got kicked off his team from last year moving into this, and yet he's still coming in and showcasing why he is one of the top hunters that we can see in the league. They just played so well. I will give them all credit in the world. They played far above the expectations I had for them. Originally, I thought it was going to take a while to get even close to this point, and that is a way to kick the door down and just make a statement on day number 1.
And luckily, the argument is the same but flipped for this Titans team. It's a long year. We got 3 long phases. You got time to grow into things, right? The Kings maybe ahead of schedule, at least from what we saw in their first set of the year, but Titans have plenty of time to catch back up with the potential that we know that this team has. It was just such a rough day for that Titans squad. I think better to focus on the good that the Kings brought. I was so happy to see what Captain Twig was able to do in the jungle. That is our first of 6 SPL sets we have here this weekend. 2-0 for the Camelot Kings. And Gore, our next matchup, Leviathans versus the Bolts. There's some history between these two teams. If you look back last year, the teams they were playing under, Sanguine and the Renegades respectively, this Bolts roster gave the boot to the Leviathans roster for most of the tournament structured weekends that we had last year.
Yep.
And also, after watching a game like that, the Leviathans team saw the guy that they kicked get a swift 2-0. Netroid decimates their opponents here in week 1. Now it's Yarkor going from solo. I mean, there are so many storylines based purely on roster swaps, I think, to look forward to here. Are you excited about the Leviathans and the Bolts matchup?
Oh, yeah, I think there's a lot. And again, we have some content that's going to be coming out about like roster swaps and stuff like that we've been working on with a lot of these players. But for both of these teams to essentially end up with still 80% of what was their team last year, still some swaps, still some things to get used to, it should be a really fun match.
Absolutely, Gormizer. I cannot wait to get into that one. Leviathans versus Bolts up next.